Hello, 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 and welcome to Updog Sports Talk. My name is Matt Miller, and joining me is Justin McGovern. What is up, Justin?
What is up? I'm very excited for today. We don't have to talk about how terrible the roughing the passer penalties have been in the NFL because we are talking college football today, and this is a Updog Sports Talk first. We are giving our top 25
Top
rankings.
25.
We did not rank them in the beginning of the year like other people do. We waited till about 6 weeks into the year now to then give our thoughts on these teams with a fresh perspective. So
No bias towards any conference. Power 5, Group of 5, doesn't matter. As long as you're one of the 131 college football teams, maybe excluding Colorado, we considered you.
come on, let's not bury Colorado here. We have friends there.
We do have friends there. Shout out to Derek, but yeah, just not a great start to the season. Unwarranted shot, my bad. But let's get started, Justin.
Oh yeah. Yeah, let's get in here. Let's talk about teams that are off to a great start to the season. And well, number one on the list, the team that has grown men in the stands barking like dogs. Hoo, hoo, hoo. The Georgia Bulldogs, the defending national champs. We got the number one in the poll because so far there hasn't been a loss to tell us they aren't the national champs still.
The only thing is, they almost lost to, who was it?
Missouri.
Yeah. That would have been a terrible loss.
Oh yeah.
A lot of rankings have like fluctuated. Alabama just moved down because they needed the refs to beat Texas A&M, but
and Jimbo as well.
yeah. And so our opinion, Georgia still number one. We didn't feel like they warranted moving down, despite their struggles. But yeah, Georgia number one.
I mean, still in the same year, they do own one of the most impressive results of the year when they completely blew Oregon out of the Georgia Dome. So, moving on here, number two, we just briefly mentioned them. Roll Tide.
My Alabama hat is over there. Tide. I almost wore that one.
You
didn't. I got an Ohio State one too, and I don't like either team, so that's kind of funny. But yeah, Alabama. I mean, they're always going to be in the top 5, regardless of if they lose their one game every 5 years. They're a strong team. Now, big question mark surrounding Bryce Young. How this team is going to go going forward. Is he out for an extended period of time, or they
think he's going to be back pretty soon. Honestly, if I had to guess, he will be back this weekend.
Okay, yeah. I honestly don't think they're still going to struggle. I don't think they're going to struggle that much, but big question mark around that, because that's just going to your backup quarterback in general. Not a great thing to do, especially if you're a top tier team with a top tier quarterback. But they're just loaded everywhere. They're going to be strong. They're good.
Yeah. Weirdly more turnover prone than they usually are. So if that loss does come before, they meet Georgia in the SEC championship or the playoff, it'll happen probably because of turnovers. They're very weirdly turnover prone right now. Even Bryce Young's been turning over more than usual.
Yeah.
But moving on to the next team on our list, OH.
I'm not doing it.
Don't leave me hanging. I am. The Ohio State Buckeyes, probably at least the most consistent team so far, but outside the games against Notre Dame and I don't know, maybe Wisconsin, there hasn't been a lot of challenges so far. But
even then, like Notre Dame had a rough start to the season. Wisconsin fired their coach, so I don't think there's been a whole lot of competition. That's why I had them at 3. The polls had a movement up to 2, but honestly, of the top 3 teams, Georgia's probably played the stiffest competition.
Yeah, I'm not ready to move Ohio State ahead of Alabama or Georgia until Alabama or Georgia loses at this point. I mean,
Yeah, going forward,
Georgia,
their ranked teams that they play is Penn State and Michigan. That's it. So should be a easy road ahead. They should demolish Penn State. I like Penn State, but they're not going to really give Ohio State some competition. The only competition is going to be the end of the year against Michigan.
that'll be a big one for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, offense looks pretty good. Defense still working out some things, but overall, pretty solid team so far. But we'll learn more as the year goes on. Next game is against Iowa, by the way. So that one, their defense will test the offense, but Iowa's offense sure won't test the defense.
Not at all. Maybe last year, but not this year.
You know how funny it was? Iowa managed to punt twice in one possession this past weekend.
Yeah, how about that? They're just a strange football team.
Yeah. Moving on. Number 4, the Clemson Tigers. They appear to be back to their normal form. Dabo is just sprinting down the hill, feeling good. Yeah, this team, DJ Uyunglele, is starting to look more like we expected him to look last year.
Like he did against Notre Dame when Trevor Lawrence was out. Like he's starting in that hurricane. Starting to look like a more solid football team. There's still a decent amount of errors that they have un-Clemson-like. But with the competition they've played so far, I think they're deserving of 4.
Yeah. I mean, they do have quite a few wins over good teams already. I know there are times, like there have been times where the offense has weirdly struggled. Like they were tied 3-3 with Boston College for a little bit, and then second half starting, they rolled them a little bit. So maybe they're just more of a second half team. Secondary and offensive line might be the biggest concerns for them, but really nothing they can't overcome to beat the rest of the teams they have in the ACC. I think they face the toughest challenges already.
Yeah. So moving on.
Up next, possibly the most boring 6-0 team in college football history. That's both a good and bad thing. The good thing is
they're the first bowl eligible team.
Yeah, because they won early on at noon. But yeah, they've handled everyone they played pretty easly. I really honestly haven't seen them play much because their games are so boring right now.
Yeah, I mean their offense is seemingly great. But I mean they're another Big Ten team that hasn't really played anybody. So but we don't know what their defense is going to be like because their defense hasn't really been tested.
Yeah, and their non-conference schedule, because they bailed on UCLA, was literally, by the way, UCLA and Michigan, how great of a game would that have been? UCLA coming into the big house with the team they have this year. That would have been a lot of fun. I cannot believe they robbed us of that. Instead, we had to see Michigan beat Hawaii by 50.
Yeah. So anyways, Michigan at 5. A lot of people had them at 4, but I think strength of schedule plays into this one. 5.
Yeah. I wasn't willing to drop them like too much because they were a playoff team last year. There's really no indication yet that they aren't any different from that, but it's just, they drop below Clemson because strength of schedule.
Yeah.
Next on the list, the Tennessee Volunteers. Do we have a resurgence here? This might be their best season in a long time.
I would say they have a very strong team, but their starting safety just got arrested for felonious domestic assault. We won't get into that, but he may be out for a little bit. So depends on if they have depth in the secondary. If not, they could start struggling because he was a halfway decent player. But offensively, they're rolling.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker right now is looking like a Heisman candidate. I mean, the passing game has been rolling, and they haven't even had their best receiver the past several weeks. They do expect to have him back against Alabama. But really, this is where the true test is. How good is this team? Are they going to actually show up and compete with Alabama, or are they going to roll down and lose by 30?
I hope they just destroy Alabama. So
it would be
hopefully
great.
Bryce Young doesn't play. Tennessee wins. They move into the top. I would move them into the top 4 at that point.
Arguably moving them higher, because if they were to beat Alabama, they'd be the most impressive win anyone has.
I would probably literally, if everybody on this in front of them won, I would probably just switch Alabama and Tennessee.
Yeah, fair enough. But it would be cool to see. We'll bring us some new blood, but we'll see. Definitely a tough task for them this weekend, and we'll really see what they are. But this is what they look like so far. Demolishing LSU on the road was a pretty impressive win, and I think moved them up in both our rankings.
I mean, Brian Kelly loses big games. We know this.
True.
Gotta take my shots.
Up next, probably the most disrespected program in college football in terms of just like the sheer consistency they have, but yet they always manage to go under the radar. The Oklahoma State Cowboys. This team is looking pretty good so far. Offensively, Spencer Sanders has stopped turning the ball over, so he just looks great. They have strong
defensively. I don't think they've really changed a whole lot on defense. They lost their defense coordinator to Ohio State. They lost Rodrigo to the NFL, and
a few more starters, but
I mean, like it doesn't seem like they've lost a whole lot of their step. So I mean, Big 12, look out.
I feel like they have a pretty good pass rush. The main thing they're doing though is they're forcing turnovers. I know this past weekend, Texas Tech just had this like electric redshirt freshman quarterback out of nowhere. That kind of caught them by surprise for a bit. They had to come back and beat them. But late in the game, Oklahoma State adjusted defensively and managed to.
But that's like the Taysom Hill thing. You plan for one quarterback and another one ends up coming in. You didn't plan for that quarterback. They have a different skill set. So then that's just going to happen.
Yeah. And I mean, the kid was a redshirt freshman. You don't have much tape on the guy.
Yeah.
But hey, they overcame. They won it.
Matt White.
Get ready though, because a big one coming this weekend. The Horned Frogs. Well, the Horned Frogs. I was about to say the Horned Frogs come into town, but they actually go to the Horned Frogs.
If Tennessee wasn't playing Alabama, I would. They're playing this weekend, right?
Yeah.
So if they weren't playing, if those two weren't playing, I would say this should get game day.
I mean, yeah, this is a terrific slate of games. Like on the Michigan preview, we didn't even mention the Michigan part. We didn't even mention they play Penn State this weekend. Like this is a crazy weekend.
This is a big weekend.
Yeah,
our rankings may change. We're not going to do a weekly ranking, but
yeah. Honestly, we'll probably do our next one. Let's save that for the end of the show.
Yeah.
Next up, the USC Trojans. Lincoln Riley came in, brought in a whole influx of transfers. Really has transformed this team. I mean,
he pretty much moved to Oklahoma and put it over here.
I mean, really, they've switched, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, but they got it going. Caleb Williams, Demario Williams. I mean, that's
and then obviously Jordan Addison, the Blitnikoff winner last year. Go ahead, add him. Brendan Rice. I mean, they got an electric offense. Travis Dye's been playing good at running back. Just some questions on the offensive line. Defensively, I think a lot of people liked entering the year kind of thinking they were weak in defense, but honestly, seeing them the past few weeks, their defense has actually been pretty good. It's not just forcing turnovers. They actually are stopping people.
Yeah, they USC seems to be back. We'll see how they fare throughout the season because, man, does the Pac-12 look just stacked?
Yeah, much better than usual. I mean, obviously, a test comes up this weekend. USC playing Utah. Lost some shine on it because of a team we'll talk about later. But USC is actually underdogs in that game, which is surprising. But
Utah hasn't impressed me, but whatever. USC at 8. Who we got next? TCU.
Next, the TCU Horned Frogs. I was boots on the ground. I got to see this team in the season opener in person against Colorado. And they have some big guys up front. They have some fast skill position players. They were a team when I got to see them kind of spent the first half kind of figuring things out. Didn't really know what they had, but then they kind of figured it out in the second half and just tore Colorado apart. But they've been growing as the season's gone on here, and it's impressive. Max Duggan wasn't even the original starter for the team.
And he just caught fire. He just started playing and then he caught fire.
Now he's a Heisman contender.
Yeah.
He is just absolutely killing it. Great runner. He's been throwing the ball well. Quinn Johnson was surprisingly not super involved. And then obviously coming into the big game against Kansas, they were like, all right, we got to get our top dog of the ball. And they did. 14 catches for over 200 yards. This team just looks very good right now. Offensive line and pass protection is still a bit of a question. And then sometimes their defense seems a little bit leaky. But overall, this team has the makings of a surprise team here.
Yeah. Maybe they'll make the playoff. We'll see.
Maybe. Hey, they are one of the few teams outside of the usual teams that was very close to making it.
Yeah. So who got 10?
Number 10 now, the team that we were hinting at earlier, the UCLA Bruins. No one really thought about them much because they had an easy non-conference schedule, which they can thank Michigan for bailing on that game. But yeah, they didn't play anyone good the first 4 games, but then they caught our eyes a little bit against Washington.
No one showed up to the first 4 games.
I know. Well, I mean,
it is LA.
Yeah. But people better start showing up now because this team looks good. They destroyed Washington, just destroyed Utah. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR. Matt, we got to see this guy make one of his early starts. And he tried to throw the football without the football in his hand at one point against UC. He did not look good back then. But now he's a fifth-year senior. He's grown
the team's come a long way.
Yeah. He's 5 years of Chip has paid off well for him. He looks very good. Zach Charbonnet.
Honestly, I can't believe Chip Kelly's still there.
I know, right? it really did not look like it was starting out well, but this might be the year where things get going. It feels like it is so far. Their running back is an absolute beast. They just have receiving weapons all over the place now. Defense is kind of questionable a little bit, but overall, I wonder if they actually might be the team of LA.
Maybe. They do play in a few weeks, don't they?
They
is that end of the year?
That's the end of the year.
That should be a big game.
After a bye week, UCLA heads into Eugene to play the Oregon Ducks. So that one will be interesting.
Yeah.
Next, the Ole Miss Mississippi Rebels. Lane Kiffin and co. Really, this is another team that kind of had a soft beginning to the schedule, didn't really play anyone. But 2 weeks ago, they finally played a tough team in Kentucky and
pulled off a win.
It was they had a lot of transfers, and the soft slate to open up the year was really favorable for that, where they can kind of work things out a little bit. Jackson Dart seems to be getting more and more comfortable each week. They have just so many electric running backs now. Zach Evans is the highly hyped up transfer, but another kid, his name just barely escapes my mind, and now I feel bad about it. He's a freshman who went off against Kentucky.
I can't remember his name either, but yeah, I remember that. But Ole Miss, the one thing I will say is I think their weakness is Lane Kiffin. Based on previous years, his play calling has been terrible, and this year it's much better, but he just gets in his own way. So we'll see how he does the rest of the season with play calling, but the team so far looks legit. We'll see where they go.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how it looks, because obviously they have looked a bit off at times. They trailed Vanderbilt at halftime last week before they won by 30, but we'll see when they have some more tests. But yeah, pretty decent team so far. Next, the Penn State Nittany Lions. This is another undefeated team that hasn't faced too many tests. Auburn isn't a great team, but rolling into Auburn and just demolishing them was a pretty impressive game. That's really been the most impressive thing they've done so far. Winning at Purdue is not easy either. They managed to do that week 1.
Yeah, they're no longer Purdue, but they're not totally Purdue. But that was a terrible joke. Penn
bad.
State, they're third in the Big Ten. They're automatically third, no matter what they do. They got a solid team, but I don't think
they do have
they'll make a
chance
solid
to change that. They do have a chance this month to change that. If they can pull off wins over Michigan or Ohio State, they could be above that, but it doesn't feel likely at this point. It feels like they're just a step below them. Still can make themselves into like one of the New Year's Six bowls if they can avoid upsets. Like,
yeah,
I think after they play Michigan, they play Minnesota. That one could be a dangerous game. But yeah, so far
Rutgers is always a dangerous game.
No, they're not. Rutgers.
You don't prepare. You practice for the next team after Rutgers. They're pretty much a practice.
Yeah, I know. And you still beat them by 30. They suck.
Yeah, we'll get to them never. But Penn State 12. We'll see where they go.
Yeah. Next up, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. So far they lost in overtime. This is our first one-loss team, by the way. Their one loss, pretty good one, losing an overtime thriller to Clemson. They were so close. It would be crazy to think about where they would be if they would have won that game, but
probably much higher. But
yeah,
I mean, I love what Dave Clawson's doing down there.
I know, yeah.
You'd think that like players like losing like Jesse Bates like a handful of years ago would have like kind of hurt them, but like he's got this team going. They're very strong. They competed with Clemson. The only reason why they're 13th is because that loss.
Yeah. Sam Hartman has looked amazing since recovering from blood clots before the season and missing early the year. And their set of receivers are just absolutely electric. Defense is a bit of a question. They aren't great there. Next on our list, though, ho ho ho! The NC State Wolfpack. It's fun because our fans get to howl in the stands. This has been a team that kind of I wondered about for a bit because, I was hoping they could break through. They didn't really do that. And honestly, like their offensive line and receivers have kind of looked off all year. They didn't look great, and then trailing 17-3 against Florida State at the half was not better. And then they lost their starting quarterback, Devin Leary, who looked,
amazing.
Pretty good.
Yep.
And then they came back and won.
Yeah.
So that was really their most impressive result of the year, was coming back and beating Florida State with a backup quarterback. The interesting thing I found is that backup quarterback only threw the ball once all game. So maybe they found something utilizing the run game just the entire time, but definitely it's a question mark how long Devin Leary will be gone.
They're definitely much improved for what they've been. Held their own against Clemson for a little bit, but it just seemed like Clemson always had kind of like a arm out, like, whoa, we got this. You guys aren't taking this from us. But solid football team. I like them.
Yeah, pretty solid. If they can keep winning, then a rare New Year's Six bowl could still be in the cards for them. I don't think a playoff berth at this point is possible because I think
not unless everybody loses in front of them.
Yeah. And obviously, like Clemson would need to lose twice somehow in order to make the conference title, which doesn't seem possible at this point. But yeah, pretty solid senior group. But yeah, just kind of a few things to work out as the year goes on. Next, we'll continue our trend of ACC teams here. Syracuse, they're undefeated. Are they good?
They are undefeated. That is a fact. But they never really impressed me. The most impressive thing about them to me is their stadium. Like the fact that they're the ones with the dome. Like,
yeah. I mean, they're the only team with a dome on the list so far. But yeah, I mean, like they just kind of they're weird to see so far because they've had like they have stretches where they look good, and then they have other stretches where they just don't look good.
Dino Babers got something going there, so we'll see what they do, but I don't. They haven't really impressed me that much. They are undefeated, but
yeah, beating Purdue was a pretty impressive win, but that's really the most impressive to speak of so far.
For them, it's impressive for them.
The next 6 games will determine a lot. I mean, the stretch is so tough. It's entirely possible they could be 5-6 going into Boston College, hoping to beat them for a bowl bid. But
hey,
I like seeing
5-7 teams make it. 5-7 teams make it.
Whatever. But I mean, they should be Boston College. Boston College stinks.
Yeah.
Next, quack, 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 quack. The Oregon Ducks, like we mentioned earlier, got blown to the state of Florida out of the Georgia Dome against Georgia. Like, they got destroyed in that game. Did not belong in the same field, but they've looked good since. It's tough to tell what to make of this team as a result.
Oh, we're getting taken down. There's a Disney logo there. So we will be off the internet shortly after this, but but Oregon, for me, Noah Sewell he's good, but he doesn't seem like the player he was towards the end of last season.
Yeah,
and that's why he's being mocked to second. And I've actually seen him in the 3rd round in some mock drafts. But yeah, they got a solid squad. They're helping keep the Pac-12 afloat, but they got a couple of things they got to turn around. They need to be more potent on offense, and then defensively, they
honestly though, like Bo Nix has actually been looking like good Bo Nix a lot of the time this year.
Yeah, but he was hurt for a little bit, wasn't he? He was hurt for like a little bit of one of the last 2 games.
No, not recently.
I got a notification of that he was out, but
yeah, like he's looked good outside of the Georgia game. Bleacher Report. That's probably why. Obviously now for the Pac-12's sake, I mean, Oregon can't be the team that comes out and wins it, because then they won't make the playoff because that disaster was showing in week 1. But otherwise, yeah, it's still looking like a pretty solid team.
They are ranked 16th, so
the surprise team of the year, the Kansas Jayhawks. Yeah,
Rock,
Chalk, Jayhawk.
I can't. I've watched them the last 3 weeks. I did not turn on another game at all, and I've just watched them.
Yeah, they're such a fun team.
Jalen Daniels is out for the season,
which is just very sad. Yeah. He was, looking like a Heisman candidate, but I'll tell you what, freaking Jason Bean was out there slinging the rock, dude.
Yeah, dude, just throwing that pill around the yard. But yeah, I still like Kansas going forward. I think their chances for playoff is out the window, but they've impressed me.
Yeah, I feel like they can stay in the top 25. I mean, I don't see a reason why Bean's going to cause too much of a drop off. But for some reason, they're actually like huge underdogs against Oklahoma this next week. I know the Oklahoma's terrible. I have no idea why that's the case. And like Bean, the last year actually played against Oklahoma, a much better Oklahoma team, and actually played pretty well. Kansas tried to upset them last year until the 4th quarter of that game.
Yeah. So go Kansas. We're rooting for you the rest of the year. Once it comes to basketball season, we will probably not be rooting for you, but yeah, we're big Kansas football fans.
Yeah, this program is rooting for them quite a bit. Next on the list, old Mike Leach and the Mississippi State Bulldogs. This team's looked pretty solid so far, I would say. They had the usual like typical bad Leach performance against LSU, but
typical bad Mississippi State 1 or 2 games a year. Like,
yeah,
that's their thing, even when Mike Leach wasn't there. So like they sorry, we got 10 minutes left. They're solid. I don't have them anywhere near the top 10 anytime soon.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, pretty solid team. Yeah, they've rolled pretty much everyone else they played. Blowing out Texas A&M was pretty impressive, but another test against Kentucky this week before they receive their annual blowout loss to Alabama. The Kansas State Wildcats. This team is being led by the Adrian Martinez Renaissance here. He got away from Scott Frost, and now things are going much better. They had lost to Tulane, and that's their only loss so far. But yeah, this seems like
Tulane's not half bad, so
yeah,
not a terrible loss. Not one that I would expect a Big 12 team to do, but it is Kansas State at the end of the day. The entire state of Kansas just seems to be really good at football all of a sudden. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a wild season. Can't wait to see what Kansas State can do. I have not watched a single one of their games because I've just been watching Kansas.
I do know they got quite the defensive showdown with Iowa State this past weekend. Even though there's like a really funny play where the Kansas State had a big play, the receiver was about to go in the end zone. Iowa State guy punched it out and the ball flew up in the air and got recovered by Iowa State. So at least they won by more than they did. But that's Big 12. Big 12, like every single game is exciting in that conference.
Yeah.
Now,
my favorite
about this, a brand new team at the FBS level, and the only team that's undefeated at the FBS level at all time, the James Madison Dukes.
Dude, this team, they're legit.
Yeah. Best run defense in college football right now. I mean, even shutting down like a team like Appalachian State from running the ball. They've been rolling everyone they've been playing.
Yeah. They have impressed me. They're not bowl eligible, so that kind of stinks. So it doesn't matter where they land in the top 25. They're just, but hey, perfect for recruiting.
Oh yeah. And I mean, like you can already tell, like this is a program with a good culture with it. They had a winning culture coming up. And I mean, they don't do anything fancy. They just have a good mix of run and pass offensively, just shut down the run, make you work from there, and that's what they're doing.
They have a nice early 2000s balance to their offense, and if they keep this up, they're not going to be in the Sun Belt very long.
And by the way, also 5-0 against the spread. You know what they say: good teams win, great teams cover.
Yeah.
Now we continue to stay outside the Power 5 here, at least for another year. The Bearcats of Cincinnati. Definitely not the same level as the playoff team last year, but outside of the state field.
As I said in an earlier video, they've lost a lot of players that kind of held them up. Defensively, they've been strong, but there's only so much you can do on defense. Offensively, first half, they seem super conservative. Like they're just kind of toying with teams. I don't know what Luke Fickell's really doing with that, but they're a second half offensive team. Ben Bryant seems to have figured it out. I don't know if he's going to be out very long. I never did go back to look to see if he's out, but Prater's not bad. He just has to, they're going to be more of a running football team with Prater under center, but definitely not making the playoff this year, but very solid going into Big 12 play next year. So,
yeah. And like we mentioned, James Madison's not eligible. So currently the favorite for New Year's Six Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, how about this for a new team? The Illinois Fighting Illini. Yeah, this team's been pretty surprisingly solid so far. Kansas broke the longest Power 5 streak of not being ranked in the top 25. Illinois had the longest streak, and now a week later, they're ranked 2. Rutgers is now the longest, and they'll stay that way forever because they suck. But yeah, I mean, this Illinois team, they're not great offensively, except for running back Chase Brown, who's an absolute stud. But defensively, this is where this team shines. They have just they played strong running teams and have absolutely shut down the ground games the past couple weeks.
You know what this team tells me? They're better off without Lovie Smith.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. There's not even a question. Brett Bielema apparently knows how to win the Big Ten West. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Illinois is like a less impressive Kansas to me. Like the fact that they're in the top 25 is perfect. Like it's great for college football. You get different faces in there. I want to see what they can do, but Michigan and Ohio State, it's their conference to lose.
Yeah. And obviously, like their starting quarterback, DeVito, we don't know how long he's gonna be hurt. It ended up leaving them in the second half of the game against Iowa with Dingwell, Hall of Famer Art Siktowski as the starter. And he threw a red zone interception just like a Dingwell Hall of Famer would do.
On cue. By
the way, that guy's been in college football forever. He was like a Dingwell Hall of Famer back in 2018.
Yeah. A lot of these players got that free COVID year.
Yeah.
So we're seeing older players in college football.
Yeah, it's been interesting to kind of follow along here and see some of these guys that have been around a while. And especially it's tough to keep track of them because of the transfers. But moving on here, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, forgotten about. Obviously, they look good in all but really one game. The loss to Marshall is one that kind of makes you confused. It's Marshall's.
It was a trap game.
Yeah, it's Marshall's only win over an FBS opponent right now. Weirdly enough, Marshall played 2 FCS teams this year. But yeah, I mean that's the most perplexing loss of the year so far. But otherwise, I mean Notre Dame's been pretty impressive lately.
Defensively, they're very strong. I mean Marcus Freeman even said it's the game. This game is won in the trenches. Notre Dame's culture is in the trenches. Offensive line holding it down. Defensive line come up with big stops on 4th and 1. Great run game. They got 3 guys now that can just take the ball to the house at any point. They're doing it with a backup quarterback because Bushner's out for the year, but receivers played well last week. They just, when they get ahead, they don't know what to do, and then the other team comes storming back. Nothing against BYU. They're a great football team, but when you have that big of a lead, you got to win.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair to Notre Dame, BYU is kind of more of a second half team. They kind of
we're running low on time.
Pretty solid so far. Next, Texas Longhorns. If Quinn Ewers stayed healthy all year, it definitely feels like they would have beaten Alabama. If they had beaten Alabama and beaten Texas Tech, they would be number 1 on this list. How crazy is
that? Yeah, that would. Is Texas back? Kind of. We'll see what they do in the SEC, but
Oklahoma, I know, is the opposite of back.
Yeah.
but
the Longhorns are ranked
best in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, congratulations to them getting back in the top 25.
Yeah. You're back to relevance-ish.
And then BYU, we mentioned them before. Bit more of a second half team. That's kind of why they made a comeback. They came back a little bit in the second half to beat Baylor. That was an impressive win. Obviously, they didn't have a chance in the second half after losing to Oregon. But overall, pretty solid team. We're running low on time here.
Very low. So
real quick, others under consideration.
We got 30 seconds. I got to get all this out. That's our top 25. Cutting it off. At Updog Sports Talk on everything. Give us a follow. Give us a like. Share some love. We'll see you guys.
See you, everybody.